Hello Blender heads, my name is Jamie Dunbar from Dragon Boot Studios and welcome to another Blender tutorial. Now in this lesson I'm going to be teaching you how to make Minecraft style terrains in Blender. By the end of this lesson you'll be able to make some scenes that look kind of like this. Now the first thing that you're going to want to do is go to this website here, mcassets.cloud. I'll make sure that there is a link in the description below. And here you can see that we've got textures, block, we've got literally every texture for every block in Minecraft as far as I can tell. So you can basically make anything out of Minecraft here. So, you know, go make yourself a cake or something if you so feel like it. But for our example here, we're going to want the grass textures. Now, the grass is a little bit of a finicky one. There's actually a couple of different textures you'll need. So easiest way to do this is just search for grass _ block. And you'll see that we've got the grass block side. That's one that you definitely want. Grass block top is another one. And then finally, not that we'll really be able to see it too much, but just so you've got them all, just go and also grab yourself the dirt texture, wherever that's gone, there you go. And this will be the bottom of our grass. So I've already got those over here. You can see dirt, grass block side, and grass block top, as well as I downloaded a couple of other ones. Spruce logs and leaves, stones, cobblestones, even grabbed a torch in there. We won't be using those directly in this tutorial, but those are just really common Minecraft textures, so probably not a bad idea to go and grab those. You will probably use them at some point. So with those downloaded, let's jump back into Blender and let's just go and create a new scene. Now to start with, we're just going to go and create a simple plane. I might just make this a little bit bigger. Maybe go with scale it up by about a value of 10. Jump into edit mode. And now we want to subdivide this plane. So just go to your search menu, type in sub and grab subdivide. You see you've got your number of cuts, drag that up. Now, when you drag it, it can only go to a maximum of 10, which is kind of a little bit annoying, but you can overdrive it. So I'm going to go and type in 100 here and get something that's a lot more dense. With what we're going to do to this, the density doesn't matter so much, it makes it a little bit easier for us to view what we're doing. So after that, jump into sculpt mode, and we're just going to kind of sculpt a little mountain shape here, just a nice little rounded mountain. Something kind of like that. Now we go back into object mode and go to our modifiers, and we're going to want to add a remesh modifier. And as you can see, I'm now using Blender 2.83. This now comes with the voxel remesher. That's not what we want to use in this case. You can see that just utterly destroys everything. That's because of our voxel size. But we don't want to be using voxel. We want to go and change this to blocks, funny enough. As you can see, we start to get something that kind of looks a little bit like a Minecraft world, but we're missing a lot of detail. So the octree depth here is what adds extra detail. So if we just crank that up once or twice, you can see that now we're starting to get something that looks a lot more like a Minecraft world. I'm just going to go and drop into material preview here so it's a little bit easier to see. Now what's really cool about this is once you've made this, you can still come in and say use your grab tool, for example, and you can still shift things around and it all kind of still works dynamically, which is really quite funky. Now in Minecraft, each block is a meter in all directions, length, height, width, whatever. So just for consistency, I like to try and make this also roughly about a meter, which should be one of these little grid spaces. And as you can see, our blocks are currently a lot smaller than that. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to scale things up a little bit. This doesn't need to be exact. You could kind of get pedantic if you really want to, but in our case, I don't think we need to. So I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit. I reckon about scaled by about 20 with an octree depth of 6 should get us what we need. Unfortunately, if you kind of up your octree depth here, it does make your cubes a little bit smaller. But we can kind of run with this. Okay, so we've got a little Minecraft terrain here. This is looking all right. But we obviously need to start adding some textures to it. Now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to figure out a way to apply textures without first applying this remesh modifier. There are kind of ways of doing it, but it has a tendency to break. So I would highly recommend if you wanted to do, multiple land masses or something to kind of duplicate them here and kind of go in and resize them while you've still got your remesh modifier attached here. And then once you're satisfied, you can come in and hit apply on both of these before moving on to the texturing stage. So I'm going to go and jump over to my shading tab over here and just kind of zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to go and create a new material. And let's call this one, what should we call this one? Let's make the top of our grass first. So let's just call this grass. That's nice and simple. Go to your principled shader down here and just hit Control T, which will add all the necessary nodes for adding an image texture. Now, for that to work, you will need to have the node wrangler add-on turned on. Frankly, this should just kind of be on by default in Blender now. It's so wonderful. Once you start using it, you'll use it all the time. Make sure that that's turned on. Control T to open this, and then go and open up an image texture. And I will jump back to my textures folder here and go and grab the grass block top. Now, as you can see, this hasn't really done much of anything other than make it look a little bit grey. That's because we don't have our UVs set up properly yet. And there's a really kind of cool way of setting up UVs for this kind of blocky style. So for our texture to show up properly here, let me just turn on wireframe for a minute, we want every single one of our faces here, and it doesn't matter whether it's facing the top or the bottom or anywhere else, we want every single face to completely fill this UV space so that it gets all of this texture on it. And fortunately, Blender has a nice built-in way of doing that. So if we just jump over into edit mode, just hit A to select all, hit U to bring up your UV mapping options, and we just want to go all the way down to reset. And you can see now that that's kind of popped that in for us. Let me just make sure that we are in fact in the UV editor over here, not the image editor. And you can see now, if I just select any individual face, that every single one of them is filling this UV coordinates, which is what we want. You can see though that our grass here is still very grayscale, and that's because the image for the grass in Minecraft is actually just a black and white variation. The game will actually go through and add color kind of dynamically depending on where you are in the world so that you can have slightly different shades of grass. So we're going to have to simulate that. So come back down here into your shader view, go Shift A to bring up your menu here and just go search and type in mix, and we want a mix RGB. Let's just dump that in there. And you want to change this to multiply, put the factor all the way up to 1, and that'll basically get us back to where we were. And now you can go and change your grass color to whatever you want, really. We're going to be going for something in a kind of greeny sort of field. If you want to get pedantic here, and we probably do because we're going to be adding the sides of the grass here, let's just go and open up an image, and let's open up our grass block side here, which we will use later. And from here, you can just go and grab your color, choose your eyedropper tool here, and then kind of pick one of these green blocks that's kind of a mid-tone. Let's maybe go with that one. And that should get us something fairly close. Now, another thing that you might notice here, if I just go and turn off our wireframe for a moment and zoom in a bit, you can see that this texture is really quite blurry. And I mean, that's largely to do with the Minecraft textures being absolutely tiny. Let me just open one of these up for you here. Let's look at the cobblestone. That's how big the texture is. Like, it is a few pixels across. It is minuscule. But we can still get a little bit more detail out of this. So one thing that 3D programs do when they bring in textures is that they apply this blurring to it. And you can't really tell because it's just called linear, but all of these are slightly different variations on blurring. So what we want to do is go and select closest. And you can see now that all of a sudden we get a lot more detail. So this is something that we definitely want to turn on if we want to really mimic the way that Minecraft looks. Okay, so we've got our first texture assigned here. Let's go and maybe assign the underside. Let's go and create the dirt. So we'll go over to our materials property here. Let's just drag this down a little bit so we can see. Let's go and add a new material. Let's actually use our grass texture here and then duplicate it so that we get this node set up for free. Let's just rename this to dirt. And now all we need to do is go back to our image here, go and open, choose dirt, and go into edit mode. Now we want to be able to select all of the faces on the bottom here. So let's just go into bottom view, and then you can, using control and right mouse button, you can draw a selection tool around this and release, and you'll see that you've only got all the bottom faces selected. Now keep in mind that if I just go back here and I'm in wireframe mode and I select all of that, it will select everything. So you want to make sure that you're either in solid or material or even rendered view. So let me just go back to the bottom, select those again, and go assign the dirt, and jump back into material. And it's a little dark. In fact, let's just make this a little bit easier to see. I'm just going to flip this over so you can see that we do now have a different texture on there, but we're still using our RGB node here to add some extra green value. So let's go and get rid of that and just plug that straight into our base color. And you can see we've now got some nice Minecraft dirt. So that's working quite well. Let's go and add another material. We'll grab the dirt again and duplicate it. And this time let's go grass sides. And once again, go down to our image node there and grab the grass block side. Now, in terms of selecting all of the side faces here, there's kind of two ways you can go about it. You can either do what we did before, except just go to like the left side and then go to the right side, then go front and back, and you can see that by doing all of that, you'll be able to select all of the side faces. The problem, and let me just pull up another scene. So over here, I've got a cave system that I tried to build, and you can see that if I go into edit mode, just toggle overlays here, and I go into, let's say, the left side. In fact, let's go front here, and I select all of those faces. That works really well, except it doesn't select the inside faces, and there's kind of no good way of doing that. Like even if I go to the back side, you can see that I can select all the outside faces doing this, can't select the inside faces. So another alternative is to select just any one face here and go select similar, select normal. And that will select every single face that is pointing in that direction, both front and the inside. So you can see this now kind of gets us a projection selection all the way through. So what's really cool is if we just select one on the top, side, front, bottom, and again just go select similar, normal, you can see that now we can get absolutely every single face that we want. So I think that's probably a slightly better way, certainly when you're using like cave systems with internal structures like this. So back over here in our main scene, I'm going to go and select a side, this side, and that side, and again go select by similar normals, and that will select all the way around our model. Now go to our grass sides and hit assign. Now one thing that you'll notice with all of this is that our textures aren't always rotated the right way. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't. So again, to fix this, we can do our select by normal, which will then select all of those faces. Unfortunately, they are all rotated the same way, depending on which direction you are facing. So once you've got one side selected, you can come down to your UV editor here, hit R to rotate, and just go and rotate it, type in 90 degrees. In this case, it's flipped it the opposite way, so hit negative, and that will flip it up the right way. And then you can just go around and do that to all of your different faces. So select normal, and then rotate, in this case by 180 degrees, and that'll be correct. And then on this side, select by normals, rotate 90 degrees, or negative 90 degrees. And now you can see that that has worked quite well. Now we're actually still upside down here because we flipped it before. I'm just going to go and rotate that back the right way so we can see this a little bit better. And you can see that now this is looking like a Minecraft world. Now generally speaking, unless you're using some kind of interesting modifier pack, Minecraft worlds don't really have this specularity. You can see we're getting a lot of shine on the top of our grass here. So usually you just want to turn off your specularity, and this would get you something pretty close to an actual Minecraft world. But hey, we're in Blender, we can actually do some slightly more interesting things. So let's have a look at doing that. I'm actually going to go to our grass sides here because I think you'll be able to see this a little bit better and kind of zoom in. And I'm going to just play with this a little bit. So first of all, let's try and break up this specularity that we're getting here. This flat specular shine is not appealing. So I'm going to go and add a ramp node in here, or a color ramp node, and drop that in about there. I might just make a little bit more space for myself. I'm going to go and plug the color into our color ramp and make a little black and white thing here. We can then grab that and plug that straight into our roughness. If we go back here, you can see that we're starting to get a little bit of a breakup. Compare that to that. A fairly big difference. I still feel like this is a little bit too shiny, like unless you were trying to go for maybe a wet, rainy scene. So I'm going to grab the black control here and just push that up until we get something that's a little bit less shiny. This is dirt, so it shouldn't be too shiny. Probably somewhere about there. Because in our next step, we're going to do roughly the same thing. We're going to go and add another color ramp, and then go and add in a bump node. And you can probably guess where this is going. So we'll plug our color into our ramp down here, plug the ramp into the height, and then go and plug the normal into the normal. And you can see now we start to get some kind of funky features going on here. And you can see that by adding this bump, it's also kind of broken up our specular map a little bit more. So you can kind of tune this to taste. I kind of like it at around about 0.5-ish. I think that looks funky. This is obviously starting to look a little bit more 3D digital and not as Minecrafty, so you can decide whether or not you want that on. I kind of like it, so I'm going to leave that on. And then I'm going to go and add these same sort of procedures to our grass texture here. So again, just going to go and add a color ramp node. Let's just shift this stuff back a little bit, give ourselves a bit more space. I might just duplicate that now so that we've got one later for our bump map. Let's plug that one into there and plug the color into the roughness. Just try to get this from an angle where we might actually get some shine on the grass. Oh, sorry, we did actually turn our specular off before, that's why we're not getting anything. Set that back to 0.5, and now you can see it's really shiny. So again, come in here and drag this up until it starts to look a little less wet. Probably somewhere about there. And again, go and create a bump. Maybe even type it correctly. Plug the color into the factor and the color into the height, and again probably set this to about 0.5 and plug that into the normal. And you can see that does an interesting job of breaking everything up and gives us a kind of funky, interesting pattern. Now we're probably not really going to see the dirt too much, but just for completion's sake, I'll go and do all of this again. Just do this a little bit more quickly because hopefully you've kind of got the gist by now. Plug that into the roughness. Crank that up a bit. Into height, set that to about 0.5. And plug the normal into the normal. And we get a nice little bump pattern, which we probably won't be able to see, at least not in this scene. So in terms of actually creating a terrain, that's kind of all there is to it. But no doubt you'd like to be able to create something a little bit more creative than this. So there's a few extra little things that you can do to make this a little bit more exciting. So to create our tree example from earlier, just go and add a cube, stick it on top of your mountain. Go and add a wood texture like we did before. Add an array modifier and give it a couple of extra counts. Make sure that it's facing the right direction. Add some leaves. Add a plane and add the grass texture to it. No, not this grass, this grass. Make sure to add that mix RGB node so that you can get some color. Add the grass as a particle system. Add some fog. Add some more mountains in the background. Add some dust using a particle system. Add a sun lamp and an HDRI for a little bit of additional lighting, and you've got yourself a sexy Minecraft sunset. Okay, so what about creating a cave? Start by creating a cube. Jump into edit mode and grab one of the faces. Go from a side view and start extruding that outwards. You can use Control right click to get a bit of a shape to your cave. From there, go back into edit mode, grab the front and last face and delete them. Then go and add a solidify modifier. We need to add a little bit of thickness to this so that the remesh modifier will actually work. Add the remesh modifier. Set it to blocks. As we did before, up your octree depth to about 6. Our cave is looking a little bit straight, so jump into sculpt mode and with your grab brush, just move things around a little bit. Create yourself some Minecraft style torches. You can do this by creating a simple cube and scaling its proportions. Use the same reset UVs to get our UV set up correctly, and then apply a torch material. The torch material will start off looking a little bit weird, so make sure that you scale it down appropriately in the UVs. With your materials set up, create a point light and parent it underneath the torch. You can now scatter torches around your cave. Add a spotlight outside your cave with a slight blue tint so that you get a nice nighttime feel. Add an additional point light at the back of your scene so that you get some nice spooky lighting. As with last time, add some fog and some dust to give it some atmosphere. Finally, add zombies to taste. And now you have a terrifying underground Minecraft scene. Okay, last one. Add some terrain. Add grass particles to that terrain. Add a nether portal to your scene using the obsidian and nether portal textures. In my case, I decided to bevel the obsidian blocks. I thought it looked cool. Add more zombies. Add a nighttime backdrop. Add some purple lights. Add some particles exploding out of the portal. Add some depth of field. And then pray that nothing comes through. Hi everyone, I thought it was about time I put my face in these videos again. So these scenes, they were a lot of fun to make, but there's just a little too much content in them to go through every single individual step. Each of these shots probably has a couple of hours work, and it's just too much to try and cram into one little tutorial video. But if you're at all interested in breaking down these scenes, I'm going to be uploading them to the Gumroad page for download. They're going to be available free of charge, although there is an option in there to make a small donation, which would be mighty fine of you. Speaking of which, if you've enjoyed this and you want to see more, liking the video and subscribing to the channel is probably worth even more than a donation at this point, especially while I'm trying to grow the channel. So these scenes, they're going to have all the assets that I've showed in these videos, with the exception of the Enderman rig in that final shot. He is somebody else's creation, but he is available on BlendSwap free of charge. I'll make sure that there's a link in the description as well as a link in the Gumroad downloads. So you can get your hands on him. Big thank you to Tim for creating him. He's actually made a couple of different Minecraft rigs, and they're a lot more sophisticated than just like the assets that you would get out of the game. Like they've got eyelids and they blink and they do a few extra special things. So definitely check those out. Okay, that's all from me. I'll see you in the next video.